Jake Payne,
Reggie Williams.
what's going on, man?
Man, another day in paradise. How about you?
Oh wow, yeah. Second week of house arrest is going all right. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, they took my beeper off today, so I can travel freely. But I still, I still got to watch where I go, and when
Yeah.
I'm back home.
Yes, yes.
How you doing with that?
Good. I've been driving around a little bit, but I realized I've only had two conversations with two people in the flesh this week. Like, have more than two, but there's only two people I talked to for more than like a minute. And that's wild. I mean, that never happened before.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And everybody is like a weapon. You're looking at everybody as like a threat as you're walking down the street.
Most definitely. It's scary.
It's a weird thing. Two
Yeah.
weeks, 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks to completely change our psychology about this stuff.
Yep. I never look at a door handle the same.
Right, exactly. Well, welcome to episode 2 of What's the Headline? I'm Reggie Williams, founder and CEO of Ambrosia for Heads. And
I'm Jake Payne, editor in chief of Ambrosia for Heads.
yeah, so what have you been doing, man, to stay entertained? I watched Ozark episodes 1 and 2 yesterday.
Okay, I've been holding
Season
out.
3.
That's gonna be part of my Sunday night. I have like a lot of people been watching Tiger King. I'm five
Okay.
episodes in. Enthralled.
Yeah, what I mean, dude, like, so you're the third person that's told me about this in the last 12 hours. So what's the deal?
Yeah, I mean it's so I the main dude, his name is Joe Exotic. I've seen him on something before. I don't know if it was like I watch a lot of weird documentaries and stuff like that, but he is a like wildlife like private zoo owner in Oklahoma. And just a wild dude. Like, no spoilers or anything like that, but there's this whole like tug of war among people with exotic cats, like lions, tigers, pumas, panthers, stuff like that, about what's ethical and who really has the say so. And it's very scandalous. So it's this 7-part documentary on Netflix, and I'm 5 episodes in. I finished 5. I watched all 5 last night. And it's literally like all I could think about for the last 12 hours.
Wow. I mean, so it's that good? Like, I should start.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen like The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia. It's like one of those offbeat documentaries that that kind of shows the worst in white folks. Not on a racial level, but just like, this is deep South redneckery. But
Rednecker.
it's
Okay.
but it's yeah, it's just really interesting. And what I love about this storytelling is you don't necessarily, as far as I'm in, you don't know who's right, other than like, man, these people are really exploiting these animals. And I'm an animal lover. I've never gone to like any roadside zoos or anything like that, but yeah, it's just there's some parts that are hard to watch, and other parts are just like wildly entertaining.
Hmm. All right. I just watched Cheer. Have you seen that?
No, what's that?
It's another Netflix documentary. It was like, guys, maybe 3, 4 weeks ago, where it's about, national cheerleaders, like college cheerleaders,
Yeah.
and how intense that is. I mean, like broken bones left and right, and like just real crazy stuff.
Okay.
But that was one. It's like 5 or 6 parts. But it's also pretty crazy, pretty intense.
How is I know you're only 2 episodes in, no spoilers, but how's Ozark season 3 so far?
Man, it's looking like it's gonna be better than season 2,
Mm,
and maybe up to season 1 standards. Like, I
okay.
love season 2 also,
Yeah.
and they took it in a great direction. But dude, like the first 2 episodes so far are crazy.
You're the person who put me onto that show, and I'm really excited. That probably will be, maybe tonight, early part of this week. The other thing that I've been doing, I encourage everyone to do this. There's this platform called Canopy, and most public libraries interface with it. So it's like a Netflix or a Hulu or whatever. But there's a lot of international, a lot of classic films, a lot of documentaries. It's all free, but they limit how much you can watch a month. And then I think you can pay if you want to go beyond that, which I would encourage anyone to do. But right now on Canopy, Time is Omatic is on there, which I hadn't seen in full since it dropped, which I've really been enjoying. Stretch and Bobbito's Radio that Changed Lives is on there. A bunch of, and Copyright Criminals, the sampling documentary. So there's a bunch of really good hip hop content on there. So if anyone's bored or they've reach the end of Netflix or any of the other platforms, check out Canopy. All you need is a library card.
Speaking of copyright criminals, so it's legal,
Yeah,
Canopy?
yeah, absolutely. And what did I just see on there that yeah, I mean a lot of like the educational films, but I think Time is Omatic ran on like Showtime when it first dropped, and I hadn't seen it in full. I'd seen like bits and pieces, and man, Eric Parker and Nas, like that you know that documentary is way too slept on. I know it got a lot of hype when it came out, but like that's something that you could show somebody who doesn't listen to hip hop and they'll appreciate it.
Yeah, 1-9, the director. I worked with him at BET back in the day. And I remember him telling me about that documentary like 2010 or something like that, really,
Mhm,
really early. And he had been grinding on it for years and years and years. And so
mhm.
it was amazing that it was able to come out around the anniversary, the 20, it was the 20th
Yeah,
anniversary, right? And
yeah,
it just turned out to be such an incredible documentary. I'm really happy for him. But yeah, it's cool. I'm glad
mhm,
everybody should see that if they have it. If they're a Nas
yeah.
fan or just a hip hop fan in general, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, but Canopy is totally legit, and I imagine there's some sort of benefits that go to the films. But a lot of great documentaries are on there, so I highly encourage it. And it supports. Got to get those library memberships up so they don't lose funding in this current administration.
Man, I mean, yeah. So we're in week two. Last week the big story was D Nice, and that story only got bigger. We recorded this last Sunday, and Saturday night he got 100,000 people. Michelle Obama had dropped in, Will Smith, Jada Pinkett, I think Oprah. I mean, it's insane. And now a week later, D Nice is literally a national like superstar. Like,
Hmm.
he added 1.5 million followers to his Instagram. The story has been about him having 150,000 people watching and stuff like that. But as you know, that's not the real story because that was real time
Hmm.
viewers. And so in terms of unique people watching, I'm guessing just based on our own like analysis of real time versus uniques, he's probably had 6, 7, maybe even 10 million people join that party over the course of the week. And he's been on Gayle King. He's talked to
Yeah.
Oprah. He's talked to Jimmy Fallon. What's your take on that 1 week later?
I'm really happy for D Nice. We talked about it last week, but I feel like he's um, been consistent with the culture and been a bit of an underdog. I mean, I think he's done things on a very high level, but as an MC, as a producer, as a photographer, as a DJ, he never, the flowers don't measure up to the talent. So the fact that I think we will always remember, however long this lasts, D Nice as this touchstone moment in terms of DJs going live and making people feel community at a time when we need distraction. So yeah, I'm just couldn't be happier for him, and he's continued through the week.
And it's been amazing things coming out of it. I mean, so on, I think it was Monday when he did it, he and Michelle Obama actually partnered and they were getting people to register to vote. And they got over 300,000 people to register to vote in 6 hours, which is
Hmm.
just absolutely insane. And then on Wednesday, he had done it, or maybe it was Wednesday that happened too, but he was done. And I think it was around 10 o'clock or so at night, at least it's 10 o'clock LA time. So it may have been even later East Coast, like 1 or so. But Halle Berry had dropped in. And I don't know if you caught this, but like he saw Halle in and he just started playing slow jams for Halle and spun for her for like 2 hours and kept it going. And he was getting giddy because Halle was throwing love and they were flirting. It's pretty dope watching it happen.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I've throughout even the last 10 days, I've been popping in on a lot of these live DJ sessions of all walks of music and hip hop. And it's amazing because it kind of reminds you of like people coming in to a club and getting a shout out from the DJ booth. Like obviously D Nice's was on the highest level. I've spent quite a bit of time in Questlove, who's been going every night this week. And yeah, I mean, there's just like it's in the most digital technological sense, it's kind of a callback to a different time in music and club and nightlife culture.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing that's happened, right? There are a legion of DJs now who have come out and are kind of putting their own spin on this. So you mentioned Quest. and he and D Nice partnered up. You know, Quest does the after party. DJ D Nice, you know, does the kind of like the starter party, and then DJ Quick, Primo, Static Selecta, Ninth
Yeah.
Wonder. What's have you been dipping in and out of other parties, or what have you been?
Yeah, Lord Finesse, which was phenomenally dope. Like just like D Nice, you know, guy who does it on every kind of element of hip hop. What else? House shoes, man, all over. More will come to me, but yeah, I mean, it's been like a club of just popping in and out of different, and everyone's got a different playlist, a different vibe, a different crowd, but it's been just thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, which ones have you kind of gravitated toward?
I really enjoyed Questlove because sort of like D Nice, there's been a theme to it every night. And that's been fun. I really enjoyed Static on Friday night. Static was playing some unreleased joints. Just Blaze has been doing that. Ninth has been great. Yeah, those have been the big ones for me. And I really like last night, it was Lord Finesse. Just because that's one of my hip hop, you know, heroes, so to speak. And I've gotten to see him DJ over the years, but to watch him just have fun, that was great. And also DJ Evil D and Mr. Walt, the Beat Miners, who were really like pioneers in this, as was Maceo. Not this with you know, Corona and quarantine, but these guys were doing it on Ustream like 10 and 15 years ago, and I remember that technology blowing me away. So to watch them, Maceo, his birthday was this week, so he was doing some special stuff with that. It's just great. Like I've programmed my mind to stay in and look forward to it every night, and I enjoy it more than even sometimes my my Spotify or my record collection.
Yeah, you know, Quest did an all Stevie Wonder joint last night. You
Hmm.
know, and then a couple nights ago, I saw him. He was playing some like grimy, like underground hip hop. It's cool to see, you know, these guys flex because, you know, I think even like, you know, we were talking about AFH and how the brand took on a meaning of its own that was beyond us. I think even these guys, you know, they have a brand or almost like an avatar that people use to kind of define them. But most DJs are music lovers, just like all around. And so it's
Hmm.
cool to see them playing everything. You know, Ninth is known as like a DJ with like heavy drums and like deep bass and, you know, kind of an underground sound, very like authentic boom bap type hip hop. But you see him spin and he loves playing like 80s R&B, you know,
Yeah.
and like 90s R&B. And like, it's cool to see, you know, the other sides of these guys coming out musically.
Ninth was especially dope just because the way he had the camera set up from the side, and he, you know, you see the buttons on the mixer and he dimmed the lights. Like that's important, right? Like Questlove did it. Questlove's been broadcasting from some cabin in upstate New York, and it's like everyone creates a vibe. DJ Quick was either in his basement or his garage, but yeah, Ninth definitely sent me down a rabbit hole of like Bobby Caldwell, Earth, Wind and Fire. Like I've really enjoyed his mid '70s to early '80s sets. Quest the same, and then another person that I watched who doesn't really mix, but it's very curated, was Talib Kweli, who's been doing it every night and having a theme every night, and dropped some really cool annotations with the records, as has Just. And I've enjoyed that too. Like when it's not always a party mix, but it's like, yo, I'm gonna play some records. And Premier was doing this around his birthday, like tell you the backstory of them. Premier played some stuff that that I don't think's ever come out, which was wild to me. So
Yeah, that's crazy. You know, I was at a party, a BT party, and someone who worked there came up to me and she was like, "Yo, I saw you DJing the other night," and I'm like, "Word?" Like, because I've always wanted to be a DJ, right? That's my fantasy. When I grew up, I want to be a DJ, but to my recollection, I hadn't been spinning, like, and I
yeah,
didn't recall a night where it had that many shots, you know. So,
yeah.
you know, I let it run with it for a minute, and then like she started talking about my wife and stuff, and I'm like, I don't really know, like, and then it came out she thought I was Talib, uh, which was which was kind of
Wait. It
crazy.
wasn't a white woman, was it?
No, dude,
Okay, all
it
right,
was a
cool.
black woman, and I
All right,
know
cool.
exactly who it was. I'm not gonna blow her up, but
Yeah,
I used to get her about that every single time I saw her. You know, like you know, not Talib is Talib, like
yeah,
Quali,
yeah,
you know, like yeah. So yo, Timberland and Swiss Beats did another beat battle too.
yeah.
Did you?
I
Did you?
I didn't catch it live. I saw a few of the clips that people had grabbed. I listened. I listened to the Joe Budden podcast, and the consensus was that Timbo, Timbo edged out Swizz. I don't know. What did you catch it?
Nah, I didn't catch it, but I mean, it's just amazing. Somebody else, I can't remember who it was. Oh, I think it was Hit Boy and Boy Wonder, maybe.
Mhm.
Did a beat together, like a virtual beat together. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's a lot of creativity happening right now.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and yeah, it's just cool. I think we know we're here for at least another week, probably quite a bit longer. It'll be interesting to see it evolve. And I hope that like cream rises to the top. And on one hand, at first, early in the week, I was like, man, there's a lot of copycats. But on another hand, I'm like, you know what? To command attention, you and I know this from, just web publishing and everything else. You got to be dope. So if people are willing to go live, the numbers are right there. And D Nice set a really high standard. And I feel like you can't just go on lazy and expect people to care. So I'll be
Yeah.
really anxious to see what happens this week.
Did you see DJ Quick at all?
I did, and it was wild because I've never gotten to see DJ Quick DJ. So he was like playing some of his own records. He played Medley for a V, which is one of my favorite from the Rhythmalism album.
Mm,
And he was scratching and like doing really technical scratches effortlessly. And
right.
and it was cool too because the night I caught him was the 25th anniversary of Eazy-E passing. So he was playing some Easy records too, which those guys work together and have some history together, and that was just like really cool to see.
So March 26th, 25 years for Easy. Like 25 years. I mean, you were like what, like 9, 10 years old when Easy E died, something like that?
11, yeah.
Were
Yeah.
you aware of who he was when he passed away?
I was just coming into that side of hip hop. I was regularly buying CDs, but what I was buying was a lot of the bargain bin stuff because that's what I could, I wanted as much bang for my buck. So I knew who Eazy was, but not like I would in the next 2 or 3 years. Because Eazy-E and NWA, that's perfect stuff for when you are a you know 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old boy. A lot of it. But yeah, do you remember where you were that day?
I remember exactly where I was. I was in my law school bedroom in Somerville, Massachusetts. And I was over by my stereo and I caught it on TV that Easy E had died. And it was devastating. Like it was absolutely devastating because, it happened so quickly. I think he had only been in the hospital like a week or so,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, 2 weeks before it happened. And it was really kind of unclear what was going on with him. I think they had said it was pneumonia or just said he was hospitalized or something like that. So then to see him die, it was crazy, And at the time, like it was still not a time. It was 1995. Even though Magic had come out as being HIV positive, it still was not really associated as something that could happen to straight men. And so it was just shocking just all around. And for someone as young and vital and brash and braggadocious as Easy, you just didn't think that someone like him could succumb to it. It's like Kobe. Like whenever like people who seem kind of bigger than life die, it reminds us all that they're all mortal, and it reminds us of our own mortality. And it was hard, man. It was really hard. You know.
Yeah, I always think of that story. I mean, it's one of the hip hop legends of, I don't have the context of being there, but I always look at Easy at the end of his life as being this guy who, as we talk about flowers, like wasn't getting his flowers. Like Death Row had risen a lot of, their come up on the Chronic and even parts of Doggy Style were taking, jabs at Easy. The label wasn't as strong. I think Bone Thugs was certainly buzzing, with the 94 EP creeping on the come up, but it hadn't, it was in Easy's wake that I feel like Crossroads took on new meaning. So there's that story of like Easy running into Cube at the tunnel in New York, and when they parted ways, it was a cold, snowy night in January, and Easy didn't have a jacket, and he was walking back to the hotel somewhere in Midtown, and Cube has even said like, he wonders if like, yo, that had any fact in, expediting what eventually happened. But it's eerie. And I was listening to The Watcher this morning from, Dre's second album, and he was talking about visiting Eazy in the hospital and that. And it's very poetic, like how Eazy made right with all of these people, but really didn't get to die with the legendary status that I feel like he deserved, at least in his own mind.
No, man. I mean, he was literally a punchline when he passed away. I mean, you had like, Dre going at him hard. You had, Cube going at him publicly hard, even though, I'm glad that that scene in Straight Outta Compton showed that they did get that final kind of like, time to make peace. And I know we wrote that, we read that, we wrote an article, I think it was based originally on a Not Right piece about that being true.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, everyone was going at him. I think he and Jerry Heller had split. I don't think Eazy was really sitting on a lot of money at the time. It was just a really hard time for him. It was with his death that, he started to get the recognition that he once again deserves as being a true pioneer. I mean, he built that
Hmm.
whole Ice-T, well, I mean, Schoolie D, I think, really started the gangster rap, but in terms of the West Coast gangster rap, Ice-T definitely started it, but he was like the IBM. And Eazy-E was like the Microsoft. He came in and took it and made it into like something that became a global phenomenon. And I don't think that a lot of people really give him his props for what he did, not only as a purveyor of culture, but also as a businessman. He was like
Hmm.
Russell, that guy who built an empire kind of on his own and did it his way. And yeah, I think the 25th year anniversary is a proper time to do that. But I didn't see a lot acknowledging him or that anniversary. Did you?
No, and I don't. I mean, I think NWA is forever cool. I mean, I think in 2015 with Straight Outta Compton, there was this renaissance, but I don't know if on his own Easy gets ever proper recognition. And yeah, it just disappoints me. I played some of his music this week, with that in mind, especially after the quick set. But yeah, Easy just deserves a lot more credit. I like the way you made the Microsoft IBM comparison.
Yeah. Why do you think he doesn't? You think it's because of the business practices? You think that the this is just like we're so powerful that they were kind of like legacy destroying? Like, what do you think it was?
I don't know. I mean, it's funny. Like this week, I played just straight solo Easy stuff, and the music's classic, but it aged a certain way. Like it's just so, some of it misogynistic, and I was playing a lot of the songs that I loved when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, and I'm 36 now.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, you know what I mean? Like it's
Find
weird,
them,
but
fuck them, and flee doesn't do so well anymore. Like Tequila
yeah,
Hooker doesn't stand up. I mean, like,
give me
yeah.
that nut. Yeah. I mean, it's different now. But at the same time, I mean, like, we're living in a time when we praise UGK. And UGK did that, on a whole other level. And, DJ Quick. So I don't know. And honestly, I don't, Easy doesn't have a lot of pieces around him to praise him. Know, the way that I think we get that with Death Row, and even sometimes even like Rap a lot. Um, yeah, it's just an odd call. And go ahead.
I mean, that's a good. I mean, rap music in general, like because it's often told from a perspective of a teenager
Hmm.
or a person in their young 20s. It's very difficult for it to age well unless it is. I mean, that's partly why of what makes Illmatic so amazing is because you know Nas is talking about life from the perspective of a 17-year-old or however old he was, but it's a very wise and you know worldly kind of point of view. It's about the ills of society and like what it's like to grow up as a black man in an impoverished like community. So yeah, I mean, but a lot of rap music isn't like that. So you think that's part of why hip hop doesn't age? Do you think hip hop ages as well as other genres?
I think in certain places, but I think you make a great point. I think that's why we will always revere Nas, in a different light than we will Easy or Two Live Crew. Like, I go back and I listen to the, first two or three Two Live Crew albums, and they're great to me, but they're not music that you want to like necessarily play for a group of people. But you can't overstate their impact. But Illmatic or Reasonable Doubt or Gangstar, even Ice Cube's early solo albums, those have aged. Um, you know, Easy does it, and some of that other stuff.
Yeah, even you said Jay and Reasonable Doubt. Even Jay, talks about how if you want my old shit about my old album. I mean,
Yeah.
and how like button went from like baggy jeans and sweatshirts to button ups and even he recognizes that he still has to mature and grow in his music in order to keep it relevant. Um, it's interesting, it's a real interesting dichotomy. I'm wondering if there's something unique to hip hop, or if someone was saying the same thing about rock music. I think back to Guns N' Roses, and you and I were trading some Guns N' Roses music a couple weeks ago. Um, yeah, you
Hmm.
got the mad freeze frame. Your eyes was like up in the top of your forehead. It's crazy.
What about now?
It's good now.
Okay, I'm like a Dali painting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, um, do you think it's unique to rap music because it is so raw and personal and visceral to like the moment that moment thing is captured in time and maybe doesn't age as well, or does it look like a time capsule, or what do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit worse. I mean, it's funny, like there's classic rock songs that are so problematic, what is it, the Beatles, she was just 17, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I like Van Morrison and the Rolling Stones, and you can go through all of those catalogs and find things that are just like, whoa, but somehow we accept them versus the opening lines of Dope Boy or Dope Man, that are just like, yo, you're trading selling drugs for sex, and
Mm.
that's that just doesn't. It's different now. I mean, we saw what happened with Rick Ross and Reebok, and now it's like, well, do we do the same thing with the classic hip hop albums?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So in order to evaluate Easy's legacy, we had to kind of step away from the lyrical content, which ironically wasn't even his in the first
Right.
place, since he didn't write his own rhymes, right? And look at him as more of an entrepreneur and what he did from a business standpoint. Do you think that's the better way to look at his legacy?
Yeah, I think it was even Jerry Heller who always compared Easy to like the P.T. Barnum of rap.
Mm.
And I think that really works. Like Easy knew how to make stuff authentic but sensational at the same time. And yeah, I mean, if if you take Easy out of the equation, is there a game? Is there a Tyga? Is there a Chris Brown? Like, everything starts to look different as we talk about the what ifs. Easy doesn't get the credit, but if you subtract him from the equation, man, hip hop is very different.
The other thing I think is that as great as Easy was, um, he was eventually overshadowed by both Cube and Dre. Dre, I
Mhm.
think especially because Dre was the guy who had I think the most vitriolic and well, both he and Cube went at him. But Dre was the guy who they built Ruthless. I guess they built it on his back to some degree. It's him and
Mhm.
him and Cube both. Um, and it's interesting, even in this time, they're still kind of like joined at the hip, and that Dre was just the Chronic was just inducted into the or going to be recorded into the Library of Congress as a work that it should be preserved forever, which is an amazing feat in and of itself. So what does that say? We're talking about these time capsules and how rap ages, and yet the Chronic, which we know has all sorts of themes that like might not be
Yeah.
acceptable to play in public, or in mixed crowds and things like that, is now being put into the institution that is the holder of all cultural things of significance for us in the Library of Congress. What do you think about that juxtaposition?
Yeah, I mean that's been going on for some time now, and I think it was what 2 or 3 years ago that Straight Outta Compton, the album, if I'm not mistaken, was the Grammy Hall of Fame, and I mean NWA never won a Grammy. Cube has never won a Grammy, as far as I know. So yeah, I mean it's weird. It's like these institutions are anointing certain albums, And you and I mean, we've had conversations over the years of, is that them trying to play catch up? Is it them trying to, is the Library of Congress trying to stay relevant in the rap space by picking albums we deem classic? I don't know, but you're absolutely right. There is a juxtaposition, and I feel like out of all of that, um, Eazy doesn't get his just due.
Yeah. Yeah, it is amazing. I listened to the Chronic just actually a week or two ago, and I've been in LA, as you know, for the last couple of weeks. It's something different. It feels different to listen to the Chronic in LA while driving and seeing signs for Long Beach and Crenshaw and Slauson and like all these places that were made famous by the album.
Mhm.
And that album, it does still transcend. The easy stuff doesn't age well, but the Chronic to me does. I don't know if it's based on the soul samples that it used and how timeless those are, or if it was, there are political things in it, like the day, the ends went crazy, like or
Took over, yeah.
took over. You know, which I sent you I think I sent you that a couple weeks ago as like song of the day, just because
Yeah.
the world is feeling so crazy right now. That song kind of like captured the energy for me. Um, there are a lot of things in that album that I do believe transcend time. So why do you think that is? Why do you think that the Dre stuff ages differently than it do? Well, first of all, do you agree with that? And secondly,
I
if so,
do.
why?
Yeah, I do, and it's funny. This week, Above the Law, which is a group I really like, their stuff has long been missing from their complete catalog. Has long been missing from Spotify and the like. And somebody, I'm not snitching, but somebody, it's not Ruthless, put up some of their albums, and it's Black Mafia Life is one of them, which I think was their third project. And that album, a lot of people say, inspired the Chronic, because Big Hutch, Cold 187, and Dre had worked together at Ruthless. Hutch starts, sampling P-Funk very extensively through Warren G, through Snoop. There's all these different accounts. Dre hears some of it and builds a Chronic around it. And Black Mafia Life is a really good album, but it's not the Chronic. And the Chronic just has that Dre polish to it. And sure, there's stuff on it that is very problematic, stuff that's like, I skip over some of those interludes and stuff, but it really does feel like a time capsule. And I say that having been 9 years old when it came out. Um, it feels like a post LA riots album. It feels like a changing of the guard with West Coast rapping, you know, Snoop and Corrupt and RBX and Rage coming on with this fervor. Yeah, it's just a really high quality album that I don't know, even with Eazy's solo debut, if you're getting on that, even though those are great, meaningful works of art, the Chronic is just a benchmark.
Yeah, so Ice-T's Rhyme Pays kind of launched West Coast gangster rap, and it did become national, but it was largely regionalized, right? It was mostly music for Cali, from
Mhm.
Cali. Easy NWAQ took that and really made it national, but it was still very underground. It wasn't getting radio play. You know, um, Straight Outta Compton did get on MTV as a video, but it was your MTV Raps and still very, very kind of like you know, it was still something that was underground and not really mainstream. It was rebellious. But then the Chronic came out and made it fully top 40. I mean, it was
Mhm.
suburban. It was soccer moms. It was like everywhere. It was pervasive and it was pop music. And so the Chronic completely changed the face of rap music. It made it something that you could listen to at a barbecue or a wedding or whatever, and no one would raise an eyebrow. So it was just a different kind of cultural touchstone. It's when hip hop went mainstream, and for it to be gangster rap is just so crazy. And
Yeah.
then Bad Boy, became kind of the Motown of that. Whereas the music you hear at weddings, 25 years later and stuff like that. But I'm happy that it's in the Library of Congress. I think it is absolutely deserved and a great thing for hip hop. But it is interesting to kind of look at it, thematically, just stepping back and looking at it and understanding, you know, not only the importance, but like just thinking about like how it is different from some of the easy stuff, you know.
So you made a really interesting point about Easy with AIDS in 95, you know,
Hmm.
94, 95, about it being a wake up call. Do you, so this week, Scarface, Brad Jordan, you know, announced that he'd been infected with the coronavirus. Do you draw any parallels between that? Since I think this is the first, you know, there's been Idris Elba and there's different people that have been, you know, in the landscape of hip hop lifestyle coverage, but this is the first hip hop artist that I know that has it. Do you draw any parallel there?
Yeah, to some degree. Yeah, to some degree. You know, with the coronavirus, there was that myth rolling around just a couple weeks ago that black people weren't getting it. You know, and then for the black Superman, you know, Idris Elba to get it is like,
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, you know,
yeah,
and when it started taking down NBA players and all that, it was like, okay, this is serious. Like none of us, you know, not young people, not people of a certain race, not, you know, no one is immune to this. We all need to take it seriously, you know, and to see Face and talking about like he'd never experienced anything like that and feeling like he thought he was gonna die and everything. Like my greatest fear is that you know, we see people dying of all ages and everything, but for some reason when famous people die it has a different impact on people. I think it's because they can personalize it, that to other people it's just names that they don't know.
hmm,
But even if people don't know these celebrities personally, they feel like they know them because they've been a part of their lives for so long. I think that if and when a young famous person passes away from this, it's going to set off a whole different level of panic, you know.
yeah,
And you know, I think that for hip hop, if you're a, I know for me as an NBA fan, I was on a plane actually flying from New York to LA when the whole Utah Jazz thing went down and they suspended the NBA like real time. It was like, whoa, that's when it really, really hit me. And so I think for fans of hip hop, if we were to have a star perish, that would just be, it'd be devastating. I think it would really, you know, set off alarm bells. What about you?
yeah. I mean, I agree with that. And you know, this weekend is the 1 year anniversary of Nipsey. You know, and it's amazing when tragedy happens how it turns into a wake up call. And I'm glad that you know, the story as it stands right now is, you know, Scarface is infected but on the mend versus the alternative. But yeah, I mean, it is, you know, along with everything else, like people I know are getting infected. It's just, yeah, it's just a reminder, and it's eerie. And I wish, you know, Face and everyone else fast recovery.
1 year since Nipsey. That's March 31st, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Man, that's crazy. Like, I mean, so much has happened in that year.
hmm,
You know, when Nipsey passed away, I think you and I both talked about it. Like, it felt like um, it hit people harder than any death I can remember in hip hop, maybe since like Tupac. Like, I don't really,
yeah,
you know, and that's not to diminish anyone else who's died. It's just that the reaction was different. What do you think? What do you think caused that? Is it because it was the first like kind of violent death? And oh, XXX Tentacion, but XXX,
yeah.
I
I
don't think is
mean,
as mainstream as Nipsey yet. But what do you think drove
no.
that reaction?
And there's Jam Master Jay, and I do think, not to disagree with you, but I think Biggie was a huge touchstone moment, which
Yeah,
obviously was
yeah,
6 months
yeah,
after
yeah,
Pop.
yeah.
Um,
That, yeah, but
yeah,
from that era.
it was a wake up call to me, because as much as I like the music of Nipsey, and I had gotten to know Nipsey, not well, but I did his very first press bio in 2005 or 2006. I My estimation of him was still smaller than what he meant to folks that are 10 years younger than me. And I can say this as a white man, I think my estimation of Nipsey was different than what he represented to some folks of color, you know, in terms of Buy Back the Block. And, you know, there was a huge social aspect to it. And I remember you and I talking, like, how long will this mourning last? And truly, I think it's lasted through the year. And I think that Nipsey continues to be point of inspiration for a lot of people. I mean, we saw the J B-sides concert dedication, and all of these different points of tribute. It just was different, and I hope that I mean, obviously we're coming off of Pop Smoke, but I really hope that it has hip hop looking at safety differently, and how we talk about violent themes differently.
Yeah, I think that certain deaths hit more because of the sense of lost potential.
Yeah.
You know, Nipsey, well, Tupac, I believe people believe that Pac was going to be much more than just a rapper. Like he
Hmm.
was already showing his promise as an actor. But I think that people really saw him as potentially being an activist that could have made tremendous change on the world beyond just his music, but like through his actions and deeds. I think that Nipsey was like that too, because Bob Back the Block wasn't just a tagline with him. He was doing it. He was, at his place of business, a place that he owned when he, was killed. And I think that people saw him as becoming something like that. And he was just starting to be able to spread his message on a mainstream level with his album and, affiliation with Rock Nation and all that stuff. I think that like people believe that his life was cut short right when his potential was really starting to manifest. And that's a really painful proposition. I think that LA especially mourned and felt his loss up until Kobe. I think once Kobe died, like you know, people started to feel it acutely again. And then the COVID thing kind of cut that short. Like, but yeah, it's been an incredibly sad and intense year in a lot of different ways.
Very much so. Very much so. And yeah, I mean, Nipsey, maybe differently than Biggie or Pac or ODB or Jam Master Jay, like we learned more about what he had going on behind the scenes in his passing, which was all the more painful, and especially to die under those circumstances when he was standing for peace and unity and all of these other things was just super, super devastating.
Yeah, but his music has gotten the proper shine over the last year, especially. NBA 2K, the album like incredibly well received. He lives on. His legacy lives on, and so that's a great thing. Uh,
Yeah.
so, what have you been listening to this week? What's kind of caught you culturally?
Oh, you mean on the new front?
Yeah.
So I really like this Conway the Machine Alchemist. So far, they've only put out a single with Schoolboy Q,
Hmm.
which is I believe called Shoot Sideways. And actually on Friday night, as we talk about these DJ chat, DJ live streams, Static Selector played the song with Cormega. So it's Conway Cormega on an Alchemist beat, and it's just like nuts. I can't wait. I think that project drops either tomorrow or on Friday. I think everything's kind of movable, but I really liked. Yeah, that's been the A1. What about you?
I really dug into the Childish Gambino album over the course
Mm-hmm.
of the week, and I love that album. I think it's really funky and soulful, and I think it's something that's going to transcend and be around for a long time. It's going to sound great in 5, 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I started listening to the Party Next Door album too.
Yeah.
That dropped, and uh, it's great. I think if you like singing Drake, then it's very much like along those lines. I downloaded. I haven't checked out though yet. Jeezy and Joyner Lucas. And Knowledge also, but I want to take those out. And I think so. My prediction is there are going to be a lot of babies born in about 10 months,
Yeah.
and there's going to be a lot of great albums dropping in the next 3 to 6 months because everyone's just pent up and like looking for outlets, whatever they can find, creative and otherwise.
I wonder if there will be divorces too.
There'll probably be that too. There'll
um,
be a lot of that.
Yeah, I have not checked Joyner yet. I want to do that. Joyner strikes me as somebody that you need to listen to end to end with an undivided attention span. I checked out Party, I checked out Knowledge, and have been hearing great things around Knowledge. The comparison I made with a friend of mine who was talking about it is it's sort of like a donutsy chop but instead, whereas Dilla went with like 60s and 70s R&B and soul and his spatial stuff, Knowledge is like 90s R&B, like what he chops, which is really cool. Um, the other thing I've been listening to is this guy Larry June, his new album, which is really cool. He's been back and forth between the Bay and Atlanta, and it has like a Currency, Burner, like smoky vibe to it.
Mm.
Um, and this week we heard the first two joints from Run the Jewels from their fourth album.
Yeah, what'd you think of that?
It's crazy to see them with Premier and Greg Nice. And from what I understand, Premier just did the scratches on it. But what I love about Run the Jewels is on every project, they go get that surprise feature, Gangsta Boo or Prince Paul, Zach De La Roca. And yeah, I mean, Greg Nice is a master of ceremony. And so to hear him and Premier kind of do the Dwick chemistry was dope. I'm eager to hear more, but I've been very curious about RTJ4 for a while. So I liked what I heard, but I often find the songs of theirs that I really like are never the singles. It's the stuff that's kind of in between.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been looking forward to and I'm hoping doesn't get completely shelved is this RTJ Rage Against the Machine concert.
Yeah.
I think that's just going to be absolutely phenomenal, just their energy. And so, them doing a track with Zach is, I think, a nice preview of that. Cool.
Yeah, their live show is just nuts, and I've gotten to see them probably 4 or 5 times during the duration of the group. RTJ, I've never gotten to see Rage, so I don't think they're coming to Philly, but that's one I would travel for.
Yeah, well, they're coming to New York. I mean, so you should come up. Like, I think that's end of July. Let's check that out together. Like,
Yeah,
as soon as
yeah,
all this stuff is passed, that'd be really
yeah.
cool.
Amen.
One of the things I forgot to mention was, we're talking about NWA and Easy and Dre. But Cube has also been in the news in the last week. He announced, I think it was yesterday, that he's partnering with the people who did Big Brother in the Mall, the TV show,
Okay.
and they're going to do a quarantine version of Big Three, where they have 16 Big Three players, referees, and coaches all quarantined in a house, Big Brother style. And they're gonna shoot the drama that happens about them living in the house, but they're also gonna have like Big Three tournaments, which is
Okay.
it's called Big Brother Big Three version, which is kind of crazy. What do you think about that?
That's dope. I've never watched an episode of Big Brother. But what I love is like how hard Q pushes with Big Three, and it seems to be working. He's constantly innovating to the point where I know even over All Star, he's like, "Yo, the NBA keeps biting me."
Yeah,
But I love that. I mean, I've gotten a real kick as we talked about TV about watching some of these things happen from home. I've been watching some of Trevor Noah's monologues from like his home office, and that's dope. But you probably follow Big Brother. Tell me what it means to you.
I mean, I saw like the first season of Big Brother, so that part like doesn't excite me. But you hit on it. Like for me, it's Q and how much he's innovated and how much he hustles with Big Three. And I did think about that NBA thing because the first thing I thought was, interesting. If this works out, I could see the NBA doing this themselves, where they're quarantining teams, of players and having mini tournaments and stuff like that, which would be crazy because, I think for me, like one of the biggest voids I think is like, man, like I'm home and, Netflix is cool and everything, but I actually want to watch some NBA games right now. And
Yeah.
not being able to do that is significant. So like him filling that void, I think is big.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw they closed down a lot of the courts in New York. Bobito put that on Instagram. It's wild. In West Philly, I drove by the other day and I saw there were like 40 kids playing pickup basketball. And on one hand, my first thought was like, "Oh God, be careful."
Yeah.
But on another, I'm like, I can't fault these kids. Like it's beautiful weather, it's March, and there's no sports anywhere to be found.
Yeah, in New York, and I think they're going to start doing it here. They're actually taking basketball goals down.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people just are not, they're not adhering to the lockdown. So it's crazy times.
Yeah, you said it. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. What else have you caught in the last anything? Oh, Erica Badu. I watched Erica Badu. She did a live concert stream, and she did kind of a tip jar approach where she charged everyone who came to watch it $1, but she did a concert in her bedroom, And it was cool because, she's talking about how they prep for 3 days and everything. They work with Google and YouTube to, like, get the stream happening and everything. She had the backup singers and musicians in her bedroom, probably like 10 feet from her. They all had on masks, and she was doing battles. She was preparing two of her songs, having the fans vote on which song they wanted her to play, and then she would just play that song. And she was just making jokes and cracking and everything. It was like literally just like being attending almost like a rehearsal.
Mhm.
So as an Erica Badu fan, it was incredible, and obviously the music is great. But it was just really interesting seeing her work. So that was pretty cool.
That's amazing. I haven't caught any, but I understand like a lot of artists are doing these concerts like that, and that's too dope. And between the tip jar and and that's another thing too is it brings awareness. Like it is not cool to leave the house right now. Like and there was a couple times. I mean, I haven't been. I've truly been social distancing, but if I like put a photo up on Instagram that's clearly outside, I've had people like scold me. You know,
Yeah,
and I love that these artists are doing it. Questlove partnered with Amazon, and they were raising, relief money, and there's been a lot of interesting ways of kind of passing the hat. I saw Royce was doing a PayPal thing of like if you appeal to him that you're in need, they were like crowdsourcing money and giving people checks. Whatever works and whatever engages. But on a musical standpoint, that's dope. I hope Erica, if she does something like that, text me because I will tune in.
yeah. Well, it was like it didn't get started until like 12 o'clock Eastern time,
Oh
midnight.
well,
So I'll
I'm a
text you,
night
but
owl,
yeah, all right.
especially
Speaking
right now.
speaking of Royce, he was on Drink Champs the other week, and one of the things he said was the first time he ever talked to Pharrell, they battled. He was on a phone call with Pharrell and like five other people, and they battled. Like,
Mm.
but that'd be crazy. Can you imagine that? It sounded to me like almost like that pun and like DMX and Mike Geronimo type scenario.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that. And yeah, it was interesting. A lot of people don't listen to Rock City. I actually did Street Team on that album. I was in high school, and that was a really dope project. First of all, I enjoyed the conversation so much on Drink Champs of talking about Royce's early days. There's a great story of them trashing Tom Silverman's
Yeah,
apartment in New York. But yeah, I had forgotten how involved the Neptunes were on Rock City, and yeah, and both Nori and Royce were talking about just how competitive Pharrell is like that, and how confident he is. I really like those stories a lot. That to be a fly on the wall for that battle would be nuts.
yeah. And then so far on the wall too. Like one of the things I wanted to talk about last week that we missed was the Mike Tyson Eminem conversation.
Okay.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't. And I saw some people online hating that it was like great guest, not a good interview. So I want to hear you because I trust your opinion on that much more.
Yo, it was crazy. Like it
Okay.
was not a good interview because I don't know, something was going on with Mike. I don't know if he was like super high or what, but he was like really laid back and kind of almost like kind of in his head and quiet and like, and almost kind of menacing in his questions, and who's not, M is not like an extrovert, Marshall is
Yeah.
not like a super loquacious dude, but it was him like trying to carry the conversation. And so that was wild to watch, like, because people are uncomfortable with silence.
Yeah.
But toward the end, man, Mike was saying some wild stuff, but also dropping really, really, really deep, insightful gems.
Okay.
I'll just tell you a couple I wrote down. He said, most successful people are insecure megalomaniacs. He said it's that, it's that like insecurity, that always having to prove that they're worthwhile, that drives their greatness. And it's the ego that like spikes that lights puts a lot of fluid on it. And he was
Mm.
asking Eminem what he thought about that, and so it was cool to see Mike talking about himself that way. And then Mike also said that he was really good at relapsing, and like kind of commended him for like staying sober for I think 9 years or something like that.
Yeah.
He also said that what made him a great boxer was disastrous for his life, because what made him a great boxer was the instinct, the desire to just like dismantle a person, to just truly like, like kill someone. And if you think about that, that's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to be in life. You're supposed to be social. You're supposed to be, constructive, get along with people and stuff like that. And so, the irony is that the thing that made him famous and, made him great is also the thing that like eventually kind of took him down in terms of being a citizen of society. And then he also talked about, because Eminem asked him what it was like, what his headspace was like when he walked into the ring, and he said he was
Hmm.
scared. He was scared. He said he was scared when walking
Always,
into
or just later on?
always, always, always,
Wow.
because you're literally going to get into a fight with someone. Like people think about, but it's called a fight for a reason. And you have to be sadistic in a way, and like it's kill or be killed, and all of that scared him. It was a really really interesting and insightful interview. I think more so just from like getting into Mike's head and seeing things from his perspective. But it was super deep. Yeah. But yeah, as an
One of the
interview,
things.
as
Yeah.
a
Go ahead.
classic interview where like it's a listening, great conversation and back and forth and stuff like that. It definitely was not that. It was more just like fascinating from an insight standpoint for me.
One of the things I've realized, and I want to, I saw that there's an upcoming episode of that where Tyson interviews Dre.
Hmm.
And Dre's done one interview that I really remember in recent memory, and that was with LL on Rock the Bells. And so like Tyson and Dre, I really look forward to. It might be the same, but one thing that I didn't realize, I mean, Mike Tyson is dumb smart. Like
Mm.
he's a really, like, watching him on GGN or watching him on Smokebox, like all of the press run that he's done in recent years. He's a great storyteller, and I'm of the, being 36, I remember watching Mike when he was on top of the game. I was a young kid, but you also remember like Keenan Ivory Wayans spoofing him on A Living Color, and like Mike being this kind of punching bag of like what's going on with his mental. And I think that Mike is much smarter than I ever realized just from watching, even when he's higher than a Georgia Pine.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I got one more thing I want to chop up with you before we take off, and that is
Hmm.
Pusha T mentioned recently, just kind of as an aside in the interview, that he's got a whole file drive full of joints with Madlib. So, what do you think about that as a musical proposition, like a Pusha T Madlib album?
I mean, I think it'll be dope. It's funny enough. I listened to some of Bandana this morning. I think it'll be really cool. Yeah, I mean, and it's that all stemmed out of Madlib did this like 8-minute interview with Complex where he kind of leaked that, and then Pusha kind of affirms it and is like, "Yo, we have these joints." I really hope it happens, but I would tell you that I'd like the Madlib joints to be um, on the more on the more aggressive side, like maybe less like smoky jazz and more like jabby, just like Push's delivery, which Madlib certainly has done throughout his career. But if you think about like No More Parties in LA, I mean, come on, Pusha on a beat like that, that would be insane.
You know, Palm Olive was one of my favorite songs on Pinata. It probably is my favorite song. And hearing Pusha go in on that, like, just was
Hmm.
just I thought he was in his best form since Daytona. Like, and so for me, that was the more soulful, like nighttime, lay back and smoke kind of music. That like I just thought that was a great mesh. So if it's more stuff like that, like I'm there for it. I think it's going to be amazing if it happens.
Yeah, I pure speculation, nothing informs this, but Madlib and Freddie Gibbs have already said there's a third volume in the installment. Pinata, Bandana, Montana is the third. And I feel like they're part of a space in hip hop. You look at the Black Star, sophomore album that's hopefully coming soon with Madlib on production. I could totally see the third volume being a collaborative thing, because that's very much Madlib spirit. Freddie Gibbs did a whole album with Currency and Alchemist less than 2 years ago. I don't know anything. I'm just reading the tea leaves, but I'm like, yo, watch it turn into something that really excites the brand.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so to close it out, what's your song of the week been?
That's a really good question. I've been playing a lot of UGK, like Riding Dirty, Dirty Money UGK. I am gonna say Good Stuff, which man, Pimp and Bun rapping over the Fatback Band Backstroke. That'll always be one of my favorite UGK moments. I've just been heavy rotation with that. What about you?
Well, you got me looking super soft now. 'Cause like no judgments, no
Yeah,
judgments. But I've been waking up and like for whatever reason, no guidance. Drake and
Chris Brown.
Chris Brown has been in my head. Like I don't know what it is, but like yeah, I like that song a lot, and that's been like heavy rotation at least in my head.
That's good. It sounds like you're having more fun than maybe I am.
I don't know about that. I just like
Uh,
Drake more than you do.
true. True.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, one last thing. I don't know if you've caught it yet, but Dave, the Little Dicky show.
Hmm.
Yeah.
First episode only. I was really impressed and surprised at just how authentic it was, like from managers to like personalities to I've never been a rapper, but I've definitely relate to Little Dicky and just like walking into the studio and having somebody think you're delivering food.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
That was
but I
funny.
liked it, and I can't judge it on the first episode. Obviously, I liked it, but to me, that was exposition for anyone who's never listened to, a Dicky rap song or doesn't know Dave's story. That catches you up. But I think what is there? They're up to 5 now.
Up to 5. Do definitely I think by the time you get to episode three will reel you in because it's just so outrageous and hilarious. Episode 4 was really funny too. I watched that last night, and what I've heard is episode 5 takes a turn and completely changes the tone of the show, but in a great way. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I think you'll dig it.
By next week, I'm gonna probably have caught up on Ozark and that. So I got work to do this week. I'm not mad at this quarantine at all.
Word, word. All right, man. One last thing. I was saying to someone recently, to me, this feels like the first days of AFH, where I was like literally writing to like, 2 or 3 people a month, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and inclusive of me. And so, just doing it for the purity and for the love of it, So I really dig it. It doesn't matter to me how many people watch, listen. For those who do, I hope they get something from it, but it's cathartic in these times of quarantine, for me. So yeah, pretty dope.
Absolutely, I agree with that, and I've been shocked at how many people hit me over the last week and were like, "Yo, I tuned in. I like this. I like you talking about that. I like what Reggie had to say here." So, man, yeah, it's cathartic because this is the longest conversation I've had in the last week that I can remember. So,
That's crazy. I'm sorry. My condolences.
I know you think I'm an incel, but yeah. And by the
uh,
way, I think it's been brought to my attention that you have that definition wrong. It's not exactly, I'm not. Let's be very clear on that.
no, I had it right.
No.
You just didn't
And
fully
on that
understand
note,
my reference.
yeah. Yeah,
All right.
that's eye opening right there. Wow. All right.
All right, man. Let it.
Have a good week.
You
Peace.
too.